Hello beautiful people, I'm Cozy and today we are talking about the scary topic about climate change, eco-anxiety and climate action, because that's the subject I'm studying and I have a lot of strong opinions. I am going to be talking about a lot of anxiety-inducing topics, but my point of this video is you don't need to be afraid. I'm going to give you tools and explanation. My aim of this video is to calm you down and help you deal with this sort of eco-anxiety. If you feel so inclined, stick around, and if not, you can do your own research in your own pace in the ways that you feel more comfortable in case you find video format too overwhelming. Climate change is scary. It can feel so overwhelming, with news reports telling you that the world is going to end, and the people who ignore the news and the science somehow end up in racially motivated conspiracies. What can you do but pretend it doesn't exist? But at the same time, those feelings of guilt and shame and pressure is building up, making you feel even worse that you're not fixing everything. The world around us is so overwhelming too, making you stuck in an anxiety spiral. The end of the world is a scary topic, probably the most biologically triggering topic in the world, since the little men in your brain who are trying to keep you safe are like, oh my god, they're working overtime trying to save you from this impending doom, and the dopamine addicted part of your brain that just loves doom scrolling is like, well, look at all these dying polar bears and look at these people whose houses are flooded, and so you keep giving that horrifying information to your brain, who's panicking because your brain thinks that that's happening to you right now or that it's going to happen to you tomorrow. Your brain, or your limbic system to be more specific, freaks out when it sees this doom scrolling type of behavior because it thinks that you're trying to prepare for something very real and in your immediate future. But for most people, your house is not going to be flooded tomorrow, and if that is the case, that a big tornado is coming or a big drought or anything, the right thing isn't to doom scroll in that situation. The right thing would maybe be to look for optional places to sleep or to waterproof your house. So either way, doom scrolling is not a good way to tell your brain what to think, what to be prepared for. But it's not your fault that you're doing that. It's because Instagram and Twitter and everything is made for your brain to be as addicted to it as possible. It's a dopamine loop. But what happens when you're doom scrolling is that the little men in your brain, aka the limbic system, freak out and they're like, oh my god, the world is ending, holy shit, this is horrifying. Let's just not look at that. Let's just turn the other way and pretend it doesn't exist and look at cute cats instead. And that's even worse because you don't immediately forget those horrifying things you just saw. Your brain is trying to protect you by finding distractions, and so is social media algorithms. But then when you go to sleep, or when you go to take a shower, or some place where you don't have your phone and immediate distractions, those scary images stay in your brain and they're spiraling, which is a problem. But it's also very human. It's very reasonable for your brain to do that because that's just a part of the fight, flight, or freeze responses that I'm sure you've heard of before. When you see something scary, you're supposed to run away or brace for impact. So when people see these horrifying, scary images, it's not surprising that people go into the comments saying climate change isn't real because they're fighting back. It's not unreasonable for people to just scroll away and look at cute cats instead because they're acting on their flight response. They're scared and try to leave. It's not unreasonable for people to go, holy shit, this is horrifying, put the phone down and just drown in those horrifying feelings because you freeze, you get paralyzed when you're scared. That's human, that's not wrong or bad, but it isn't productive. And that's kind of the gist of eco-anxiety, or at least that's how researchers phrase it. I am here today not to dispute this. Of course, the research isn't inaccurate in any way, but I want to kind of argue with this idea that humans are incapable of acting because of some psychological barrier. Because while yes, eco-anxiety is very real and these anxiety responses are very real, I want to sort of rephrase these researchers' approach, because hearing that doesn't help anyone. If I see someone who's freaking out because of climate change and I say, hey, it's okay, your brain is just incapable of dealing with something so overwhelming and horrifying, that's not gonna make them feel better. That's not gonna help anyone. So, I'm not saying these researchers are wrong, but I am saying that they phrased it very poorly. A lot of my points are backed up directly by a study by Michael T. Smith, I think. Smith, maybe, who together with a bunch of other researchers wrote a paper, The Perils of Explaining Climate Inaction in Terms of Psychological Barriers. So if you want my sources, that's the most accurate study, I guess. That's the one I'm agreeing with the most. Anyway, to everyone that's ever said an individual can't make a difference, I want you to look at Greta Thunberg, or any sort of pioneer of any movement. Look at Karl Marx, look at, I don't know why those are the only people in my brain right now, but you understand my point. There are so many people who pioneer a philosophical, political, economical view who are individuals, who make a difference. If I have an idea, if I have a solution, if I have a concern, then I can start a movement, and then I, as an individual, have made a difference. Anyone can do that, and of course, everyone might not have the exact same resources to start a movement or become a politician or whatever, but everyone, biologically and fundamentally in our brains, is capable of making a noticeable difference. Greta Thunberg, yes, she was a white, rich girl in Sweden, but she's autistic, she's a girl, she's a part of many minorities. Back only 50 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. Autistic girls would not be allowed to start movement globally protesting what the bourgeoisie or the company is doing right now. So we live in a world where a lot is possible. Yes, everything is impossible. There is, of course, again, classism and racism, but it's very important to remember that it's worth giving it a chance, and right now is better than any other time to try and exercise your individual rights, because if you're looking at this, you have a phone with internet, and that's kind of all you need to get your opinions out there, influence others to do what's right. Individuals have so much power and so much just sheer force. As long as you have motivation for your topic, you can really convince other people. And the argument that individuals can't make a difference is just immediately disputed, because individuals do literally make a difference. But you don't have to be Greta Thunberg, because you can make a difference just the way you are. If we continue to use Greta as an example, she was educated by her teachers, she was supported by her friends and family, she was encouraged by the people around her. You don't have to be Greta Thunberg, you can be her friend, you can be her teacher, you can be anyone who inspires others. An example is my own teachers. They aren't Greta Thunberg, but they encouraged all of us to skip school to go to Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Future protests. They gave us allowed absence to go protest for the environment because they wanted to motivate us to care, to have a political interest. Yes, a lot of people just use this to have a free day off school, but it still really like made my class think and appreciate Greta and the climate change movement as a whole. And those small actions mean a lot. Even if it's just one more person, you still made a difference. Even if just one more student goes to protest, maybe 10 or 20 more students start thinking about it and doing their own research and become interested in the topic as a whole. Everyone's actions count in these sort of topics. And even more than that, it makes you feel useful. It helps your own brain to take part in this, because the idea that your actions don't matter or that this is an impossibly huge task and that individuals can't do anything about is just torturing your brain again. It's just feeding that, oh my god, the world is ending and I can't do anything about it, panic. If instead you go, hey, I can do things. I can motivate the people around me. I can educate myself. I can do things that help. Then it calms that anxiety. It removes that overwhelming feeling of I can't do anything, because you prove to yourself that you can do things. You can do things that matter. Just because you aren't a company or a politician doesn't mean you are insignificant. It reminds you of your value and your power and your freedom, which are the most important parts of living in a democracy. Whatever your way of talking about climate change turns out to be, it's valuable to some degree. You have the power to communicate, and that's everything you need. And even if you can't talk or can't verbally communicate very well, you can still text, which is the beauty of the internet. Text communication is so easy and so accessible. So even if you might not have friends in your immediate circle that are willing to listen to your woke rambling or whatever, the internet gives you a platform to spread that information or opinion regardless. So even if you make a stupid little meme about veganism, it normalizes the information and it normalizes learning about climate change and the impacts of the meat industry. You can also talk about how oat milk is bad for the environment or how avocados are bad for the environment. Speaking of the individual's responsibility, the researchers on this topic, like I said, are very, very negative. They frame anxiety responses and the flight or freeze response as inevitable barriers or something that makes fighting for climate change impossible. But it really isn't. Like I said before, Michael T. Smith et al., their study shines amazing light on how poorly phrased a lot of these arguments are. Because the researchers, I'm sure, aren't trying to say give up on trying to fight against climate change. They are trying to make people understand why it is so scary and why fighting for it is so hard in this day and age with doom scrolling and news reports coming in every second of every day. It's scary. And the researchers were like, why is this scary? They connected it to our caveman brain anxiety response to go, scary, run away. And they aren't trying to say that means continue running away, you know? As researchers or information spreaders, it sounds disgusting, but researchers, educators, anyone who talks about a topic, we have to be very careful. We have to mind our language a lot, because if a researcher says that that this goes up and this goes up, interesting, they go up together, that might just be fun observation that I saw, and then the news and the media and the people who read that go, this is horrible. It's not what the researchers intended to do, probably, because a lot of people reading research papers don't understand the difference between a causal link and a correlation. A causal link is this happened, and now because of this is going to happen. a correlation. It's just this happens to go like this, and this also happens to go like this for unrelated reasons. But the media usually get that mixed up either on purpose for clickbait or by accident. Or maybe the researcher phrased it really bad, and that's why people are misunderstanding this. Just because someone smart says, hey, the world is going to end, doesn't mean you need to prepare for the world to end, because that could very well be miscommunicated and misinterpreted, because researchers and smart people have a tendency to not use language that is for the everyday person. Because yes, academic language is fancy, but it scares people when you're talking about the end of the world and why we as humans are biologically inclined to become paralyzed and procrastinate helping or fixing that problem. You need to use language that is for the people with that anxiety, because otherwise they are just going to become more scared. And if you are a person reading research papers and you're not very used to this kind of language, maybe give it to someone else. If you give them a study, you can be like, hey, can you summarize this in language I actually understand? Instead of going, spooky, scary, you said scary words and now the world is going to end. Because again, the researchers who talk about eco-anxiety teach something very important, and that's how we treat, or at least relieve, the horrifying panic and overwhelming feeling. They're saying, hey, we found the reason you are scared, and that means now we can help you. If you read something that you don't understand and your immediate response is to feel worse about yourself or about the world or about politics, try to reread that text, read other studies, read opposing studies, talk to professors who can help summarize and rephrase what is being said in that text. Humans are so amazingly capable. We are the most adaptable creatures on the earth. If the worst case scenario does happen, humans are the most capable creatures on earth to survive. We are so good at problem solving and accommodating and inventing and engineering. Humans are amazing creatures. And yes, we do get scared, and that does lead to procrastination and paralyzed panic. But that's okay. You are allowed to be scared. That doesn't mean humanity is going to fail, because humans are fantastic. Yes, the climate crisis is our fault, I'm not arguing with that, but the solutions are also our fault. We are the ones fighting so hard trying to fix the mistake of our grandparents or our parents. We give ourselves so much shit for making a mistake that we forget how much we actually do to try to correct that mistake. We need to acknowledge ourselves and our peers, because holy shit, humans have invented solar power, wind and water power, nuclear power, nuclear power is kind of maybe a solution, as well as biofuel or bioenergy. We have a lot of solutions. Some of them are kind of half bad, some of them are great. As a Swede, every house basically has solar power like panels on the rooftop, which gives them the energy for the entire summer. And some houses even have energy left over to last through the winter. That's amazing. That's like, we can create our own sustainable energy for an entire household. Humans create so many good things and so many good solutions, and yet we are so stuck on hating ourselves for our mistakes instead of going like, wow, we almost fixed the mistake. A lot of good inventions are still being made, and just because that hasn't been implemented yet doesn't mean we have failed as a society. It just means that good changes take time, to become implemented and regular and normalized. Just because that hasn't become the normalized standard, 100% of people use this technique now, doesn't mean it's a bad technique or that we are going to fail as a society or that the world is going to explode. It just means that good changes take time and it is being implemented. If you go around in more like innovative places, I guess, more experimental places, you will see that that's become a part of everyday people's lives. Just because it's not on the news or everywhere you look doesn't mean it's non-existent or insignificant in any way. Also, recycling is a functioning system in over 30 countries. That's huge, that's great. My dad came home from Serbia a few days ago and he was like, I went to go throw out trash and they had glass recycling. That's amazing, that's a huge step forward. Compared to Sweden or Germany or Japan, it's not like huge. And it's probably not a perfect system yet, but they are implementing those changes. It's happening slowly, yes, but that doesn't make it insignificant. The most important changes are happening slowly because those are the ones who are sustainable. Those are the ones who are going to stick around. In American politics, this is very easy to see. The Democrats gets power and undoes everything the Republicans do. The power swings back and they undo everything the Democrats do. The power swings back and they just go back and forth, undoing what the person before them did. That doesn't encourage change. Changes have to be compromised and small and happen slowly over time to make sure that everyone is on board and it happens safe. People often say that good things shouldn't happen at a cost, but good things cannot come without a cost. So I argue that the best cost we can possibly give is time. I would much rather lose time than lose people, because implementing changes slowly, while yes, it's annoying and yes, it feels like nothing is happening, but that makes sure people are safer and communities can still survive and all sides of all political parties can see, okay, I understand this change, I understand how I can make this work for me in time. Making sure everyone is on board and compromising, while it isn't the most ideal, perfect thing, it is the best option, because the most ideal, perfect thing is never going to work. Everyone has different ideas of what is perfect and ideal. It's impossible to make everyone happy. The only possible solution that actually drives change is compromise that happens slowly over time. Huge parts of lands are being saved and protected for the ecosystem and for the indigenous people who live there. Yes, the opposite is also happening. Yes, a lot of land is being threatened, but more land is being saved actively. I'm not saying we should say, oh, okay, land is being saved, I don't care about this anymore. But I am saying be optimistic about the human mentality and humans' empathy. If people do commit genocide, it's because they have been brainwashed, it's because they have been made to believe that is right, or whatever other sort of power manipulation, propaganda driven whatever. It's because people are stuck in a system that is inherently broken. That is not a human flaw, that is a systematic flaw. Why is it so hard to remember that the people who are in war are not doing it because they want to? No soldier, no one who kills other people for war does that because they want to or because they have a choice. They do it because they have been systematically forced to, and that is horrible and worth acknowledging. But look at soldiers and feel empathy and feel like, wow, the system is awful, I can't believe they've been forced to do this, instead of going, ew, I hate people. Recognize that humans are good and do good things and continue to push those good things. Because when we assume that people are evil and the world is evil and nothing good will ever happen, we are not motivated to do good things. We just feel like the world is shit, so why should I be less shit? And then we continue to be like shit. When I grew up, my home situation wasn't the best. I had a lot of bad people around me. I didn't understand the point of being a good person because I assumed everyone was bad until I met my teachers in school. And I was like, wow, being good is an option. And that is what people need. They need to understand that there is so much good to do, even if it's small, even if it's just like buying locally or buying in-season products. Seeing that as a norm is what we need. Not for everyone to feel like change and improvement is impossible and will never happen because humans are evil and just want to kill each other. Because we don't. You're human. You don't want to kill anyone, right? I hope. If you strongly believe in climate change and climate activism, and you look at the rich and the money hungry and the people who do horrible things to the environment, don't look at that and go, this is horrifying, I hate this fills me with anger and makes me either want to completely isolate myself or kill myself or hate everyone, kill everyone I see. Don't do that. That's not productive. Then you just become the thing you hate. Maybe it feels satisfying for you because you get to punch the people who punch you, but that doesn't help anyone. Instead of expressing hate to every rich person you see and going, you deserve to die, I hate you, if you died the world would be a better place, which is just your emotions, your hate that is very valid, but it's not going to convince anyone. It's not going to make your cause or your actions any more likable by the rich. Instead, go, wait, people aren't all horrible. There are people who do good things. I want to look at them. I want to see what they do and continue doing that. Because the good people also fight the bad people. Focus on why you hate them or why you hate what they're doing and try to figure out ways to either counteract that or have a conversation with them. Or somehow communicate that, like, hey, let's come up with a solution because this isn't working. You're harming people and that's not fair. And talk to them, explain calmly so that they understand. Use language that they will understand and explain to them why the things they're doing are harmful and try to convince them in ways they will actually listen to. A good example of this is greenwashing. Yes, it's a bad thing. Yes, it's like a half-assed money grab, money hungry attempt at pretending to be sustainable without actually being sustainable. Yes, that is bad. But we are proving to marketers and investors and corporations that sustainability is marketable. It's not a perfect concept right now, no. But someone had a conversation with those rich people saying that, hey, actually using cardboard packaging instead of plastic packaging will increase sales because people are scared for the environment. So marketing towards those people by implementing sustainable changes, or at least seemingly sustainable changes, is marketable, will make you money, so please do that. And the marketers listened, and now we can see that is a huge thing that is actively happening and actively taking over the market. It's not perfect, but it is a step in the right direction. And like I've said before, changes have to happen slowly, and we have to prove to everyone on the political spectrum that it is a beneficial change. So yes, we're seeing the start of it right now. So of course, the starting changes are not going to be perfect. They're not going to be exactly what we want, but they are going to slowly improve. That pisses me off, but instead of going, kill these people, eat the rich, whatever, I go, this isn't great, I'm just not going to support this, I'm not going to buy them, I'm going to buy something actually sustainable. We have to mind our language again, because if we tell the marketers that, ew, the sustainable crap sucks, they could take that as going back to not being sustainable at all. It just undoes all the process or all the progress we did get. So, to summarize, eco-anxiety is the biological response that happens when the brain is spooked by climate change. This doesn't mean that humans are incapable of fighting against climate change. There are plenty of small things that you can do that actually matter. And reminding yourself that those things actually do matter is the key factor in combating this fear and this climate change anxiety. Those small things you can do include activism, educating yourself and others, minding your language when listening to others and when talking yourself, and acknowledging the changes, both good and bad, I guess. Acknowledging the half-assed kind of garbage solutions as well as the amazing, wonderful solutions, and also acknowledging the bad things that still really need improving. And instead of hating the lack of change or the lack of improvement, look at what you can do to either be okay with that and sort of find a sense of peace that everything can't be perfect, or try to communicate to the person responsible that, like, hey, here's examples of how you can do better. Again, minding our language all the time, making sure that we actually have productive conversations instead of just, I hate you, I hope you die, or I hate the world, I hope I die right now, because those aren't very productive conversations. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, night, or evening whenever you're watching this. Always remember that you are loved, and yes, climate change is scary. Yes, it's real, but it's not a monster hiding under your bed. It's not going to bite your toes. It just wants you to stop buying plastic bottles. Bye! Am I crying? Jesus.